This podcast is made possible through donations from listeners like you and our partners at Goalie Ashwa Gummies. You can find them at goalie.com. Use promo code the Show Up Dad Foundation to get 10% off your order. Zenderance Active Wellness and Sports Nutrition. Their products are designed to maximize your health. At Zenderance, they strive to support and have a positive impact on the wellness of every hardworking dad. Use my code the Show Up Dad and get 10% off your next purchase. For more info, go to www.zenderance.com. Tall Man Equipment, standing taller than the rest of the competition in lineman tools since 1952. Give them a follow at www.tallmanequipment.com. And last but not least, Adam Lane Smith. He is an attachment specialist who helps people to heal, connect, and build. Use my promo code SHOW, spelled SHOW, for a 50% discount on his attachment bootcamp course. Thank you.
Hey, happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, David. It's been a blessing for sure.
No, for sure, man. I just wanted to kind of ask you about the name of your company, Reliant, okay? And I'm going to read a definition there, Brad, okay?
Okay.
Reliant means dependent on someone or something, trusting. Now, with that being said, how important is it for our families to see a father that they can rely on? What has been your experience, brother?
I mean, I think it's massive, in history, and I think even in today with the weird world that we live in, the father, the male figure, having a positive male figure is essential in a home. It gives structure, discipline, love, power, and everything in between. You know what I mean? I was fortunate enough, my dad was a very solid individual. So I was one of the lucky ones that had a solid example to look up to, kind of like a good idea of what a man should be and how they should act and what they should do. And on the other hand, I have a lot of close friends that didn't have that positive male role model, didn't have that father figure in their life. And they unfortunately, went down a pretty rocky road for a while, but my dad was a lover. He welcomed everybody. So these young men that were my good friends, he treated them like they were his sons, and they loved him dearly for that. And he loved them as well. So I think just having that, influential figure in my life has been massive, into who I've become and what I feel is, should be the norm in a household as far as a man and a father goes.
No, I could relate to you as well, Brad. I remember going up and having the neighborhood kids come over to my house and my dad explaining them how fishing is or how hunting is or how to chop wood or whatever, you know what I mean? Not that they didn't have dads, but I guess that was something that their dad didn't show them. That's that masculine aspect, I guess. You know what I'm saying? And it was kind of cool, man, because all the neighborhood kids would always be around us, you know what I mean? And I felt so proud that was my dad. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, we kind of had the same thing going on. Not so much the outdoorsiness of it as much as I wish we did because we grew up in the city. But I mean, our household was always the, open door policy. Everybody and anybody was always welcome and they were always treated like family, So it was always fun having that,
Now, with that being said, fathers have intuition, especially me. I see that, it's almost like we have this sixth sense. I'm sure you've seen that too. Now, I remember watching my father warn me about certain people that he saw something in them that it was different. You know what I mean? And he would tell me like, man, I don't want that kid over at my house anymore. He's casing our house or that kid's going to wind up in prison or in jail or dead or whatever, dude. And I hate to say it, but he was right. He's 100% right on a lot of the guys that are brought over that wound up going to prison or dead or both. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Did you ever experience anything like that?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, he was, like I said, he was very, nice guy, very much a lover. But if he didn't like somebody, he had a legitimate reason, and it was rare. It was very rare. but like it was funny, like those dudes, because I mean, that, just to be honest, I mean, that was kind of the guys that I hung around when I got into my teens and my,
Mhm.
whatnot, was the rough crowd, the guys that were usually up to no good.
Mhm.
And he kind of just held us closer, you know what I mean? He tried to, show us more love and less like, don't do that, don't do this, like being more of a friend per se than a father, like showing that that side of life isn't always necessary. So it was kind of a double-edged sword. There's a lot of times where I look back and I'm like, I wish my dad would have told me not to do that or like run with those people, but he was very much like, I don't like being told what to do, so I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily going to tell you exactly how to do things, but I'm just going to watch from the sidelines and kind of steer you where I feel like is necessary. So it was good and bad at certain times, but I'm still very thankful for the way that he raised me and let me kind of have a lot of free reign and a lot of freedom to make my own decisions and make my own mistakes.
Mhm. So it seems like your relationship with your father was a solid one, right? He showed you that love. He was caring. I'm sure he was stern at times, you know what I mean?
Oh
He
yeah.
needed to be, you know. How have you like what have you learned from him that you're implementing in your fatherhood now? Like, is there certain things that you see that you picked up that you catch yourself picking up on and be like, man, my dad used to show me that and stuff like that?
Yeah, and a lot of it is just trying to maintain a level of patience, you know what I mean? Because obviously kids can be in a lot at times, and with balancing work and business and home life, it's easy for people to get overwhelmed. And then you got
Mhm.
like, little ones that are, crying or nagging or just, being emotional. And then you're also at like an emotional, like wits end. So instead of just like snapping, like how some people do, just kind of step back and take a couple deep breaths. Cause I mean, I could think on a very few rare occasions where my dad like literally like came unglued. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? So like I try to keep that mental image in my head every time I feel like I'm about to like boil over. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, he never, my very rarely did this happen with my father. So I need to kind of pull my shit together and try to be that person
Mhm.
in this instance.
Yeah, for
And
sure. And
sometimes it's easier said than done, but
yeah, for sure. Uh, Definitely we have to, there has to be, like my wife always tells me, there's got to be an adult. You can't
Mhm.
be yelling and especially like I have a teenage daughter, right? And she tells me, she's like, well, one of you guys, someone's got to be the adult. You can't be yelling, she can't be yelling, and it falls back to something that a man that I work with, he's an older gentleman and very wise man, right? And he told me at work one day, he's like, people yell because they are confused. And I had to sit there and think about it for a minute. And I'm like, yeah, because think about it. When you're yelling, you don't understand what's going on in that person's head or
Right,
why they chose to do that. You're like, why? Why would you do that? You know what I mean? Same thing for a
right.
little kid. You're confused. So if we're showing them that we're confused, they're definitely going to be confused as well. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. No, and it's funny too, because like taking it even just a little bit further, my chick, she put it to me in a way that like I had never heard before,
Hmm.
and I never even thought of it in this perspective. And that's why, perspective is important in these things.
Yeah.
Um, he's like, because I mean, I was in a mentally unstable state for a while when my son was younger.
Hmm.
Um, and I was very emotional and kids are very emotional. So I would, come unglued at times and my chick would just pull me aside and be like, yo, like he's 4 years old. You're 30. Like
Yeah.
act 30. You know what I mean? Like he can be emotional, he can cry and sit and be confused. You can't. And I'm just like, all right, I get it. Like straight like put me in check sometimes. So it was awesome to kind of have that,
Yeah.
a woman who's, not afraid to kind of sit me down and be like, you're being a fucking idiot right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely need those in our lives where they're able to, and for us to be able to listen to that, right?
For sure.
And
It's huge.
receive that, because I know a lot of guys who don't like to be told anything by their their ladies at all. You know, they want to be right.
Yeah.
They're the man, you know, whatever, you know. So it's good that you listen to her and pay attention to her and what she's saying and receive it, you know.
Yeah, no, and I try to my best. You know, she's very a very soft spoken, kind spirit, and I'm like kind of on the other end where I'm a little bit more aggressive, a little more pent up, like in your
Mhm.
face, so to speak. So it's nice to have that kind of yin and yang relationship. You know, she's the cooling aspect to my fire when it gets too hot.
Mhm. It's amazing how that happens. You know, they say we marry or we attract our opposite, right? And it's absolutely true. And the reason being is so they do bring balance to us. You know, I'm the same way with my own wife as well. I'm very driven. I'm very
Mhm.
you know, you tell me it can't be done, I will make it happen.
Oh
Whereas
yeah,
she's the one that's like more methodical and thinks it through and you know, stuff will never happen with her, right? But she'll have a great plan, and I'm like, okay, let's put my head down, and I'll make it happen. You know what I mean? So we both complement each other, which is really awesome. You know,
awesome. Yeah, that's like I mean, people when you find that, you're very fortunate, very lucky because not everybody gets that. Not everybody finds that.
I think in a sense though that if you recognize that that's what's going on, you learn to appreciate that and hone that, right? I
Hmm.
think more than ever because we also do marriage counseling and stuff like that, my wife and I, and what we've seen is that people don't allow their relationship to develop to that point, right? They right away get offended or whatever, and they're like, oh, no, this person is not like me. And they were never meant to be like you. You know what I mean? There's only one of you,
Right.
right? And I think once they see that that person is opposite, they take that as an offense and they don't want to work on it instead of saying, hey, okay, you're different. You have a different perspective than I do. And we're going to roll with it and see, you know what I mean? It's going to balance this relationship out. So,
Right. Yeah, and that's an important thing. I feel like is having that little bit of diversity in the relationship. You know,
hmm
because it does. You know, having that different perspective that you normally don't have. It
hmm
it sheds light on things that we wouldn't normally see or think about, and all it takes is like that one little. You're like, oh my god, I didn't even think about that, and it's like the most simple thing ever. You know, after you hear it, it's why doesn't my brain work that way? You know, it's just but
right.
you get that one little niche, that one little nugget from somebody else, and you're like, and it all just clicks. You know, it's so strange, but so necessary.
Absolutely. Now, you had mentioned, Brad, about this, or we talked earlier in the introduction about you starting this online business, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, that I bet presents some unique challenges, right? I mean, it makes you more busier and you know, you got to balance work, family, and all that other stuff in self-health care. Okay, what are some of the unique challenges that you had to face as a busy father?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, I love being busy because
Okay.
when I'm not busy, that's when my mind starts to wander. You know what I mean? So having a definitive purpose helps me stay on track. But the hardest part has been just, maintaining that level of presence, like
Mm-hmm.
when I'm home and I'm around my family and stuff like that. Because I mean, in all reality, like running an online business, I'm on my phone a lot. You know what I mean? And then being a firefighter, I'm usually gone for, a day, 2 or 3 days at a time. So
Mm-hmm.
then when I come home from the firehouse, I'm trying to catch up on some online work or get some stuff handled on my laptop or on my phone. So I just need to be more conscious about time management and structuring my day to make sure that when I am home, I'm actually paying attention to my lady and I'm paying attention to my daughter, and stuff like that. So I'm not just here like, oh, hold on a minute, I'll be done in a little while. Like, like actually put the fucking phone down, close the computer, and like step away for whether it's 30 minutes or 3 hours. I just have to make that part of my day. And fortunately my lady is like super cool and she understands like that this is kind of it's taking off and it's compounding and it's not only helping me but I'm helping other people and it's helping our family too. It's I've reached a level of financial independence that a lot of people don't get to experience nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very fortunate and very blessed for that. So she understands that I'm going to be busy, but I still, in my own mind, I have to coordinate times where I'm like, okay, taking a phone break, taking a work break, even though I'm home and I could, like, I'm going to go hold my daughter for like 20 minutes, play with her, you know what I mean? Call my son. And that's another aspect too, is like my son still lives in Orange County with his mother.
Hmm.
Um, and then I go down there like for 4 or 5 days out of the month.
Hmm.
But when I'm with him, it's like almost all about him. So that those 4 or 5 days are, what do you want to do? What do you want to go do? Where's your head at? And he'll be like, typical 7-year old, like Dave and Buster's, or I want to go get pizza, or I want to go to the beach. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, let's go do that stuff.
Hmm.
Like make that time with him all about him, because that is like unfortunately the little bit of time that I get with him.
Hmm.
Um, and I cherish that because those years have gone by way too fast.
Hmm.
But
I like the fact that you asked him what he wanted to do. A lot of times, fathers, right, for whatever
mhm,
reason, want to do something they like and they want to get their children involved in something that they personally like, right? And the
mhm,
kids may not want to be, or they may not want to work on cars. They
right.
may not be into lifting weights, right, at that moment or whatever. So it's good that you asked him to see what he likes, because that's a part of building that relationship with our children or with our spouse, seeing what
Mhm.
they like, right? And
Yeah.
so I think that was important that you did that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, I value what he wants to do, and when you're a
Hmm.
kid like that, I feel like you're just your emotional state, you're always changing, whether it's Legos or dinosaurs or football, like it's always something. There's always a flavor of the week, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you want to do, pal? Like, do you want to go to the trampoline park? Do you want to go to the beach? Like, what's on your mind? And he'll just throw something out there. I'm like, all right, let's go do it. Like as long as it's something that's realistic, you know what I mean? He's like, oh, I want to go. He now that he sees like me kind of working with Wes, he's like, I want to go to Wes's house. I'm like, not today, but maybe one day, pal.
How is that dynamic with Wes? Like, how does he respond to kids and stuff like that? I don't know if he has kids or not. I don't really know too much about Wes, but
So he doesn't have any kids of his own, but he's
okay.
like, dude, the dude's got a big heart. Like he comes off
Yeah.
as this like gnarly tough guy, but like he loves hard and he means well for his people big time. And I've let my son kind of jump on the group calls and say what's up really quick, and he'll humor him and be like, "What's up, buddy?" But no, I mean, I know Wes loves kids and
Hmm.
he wants, one of his things that he talks about is wanting a family. So hopefully he gets to accomplish that here soon. I'm sure he can. There's no doubt in my mind. But he's good, man. He's got a big heart, and it shows when he's in certain instances. He's not always that guy on the phone screen or YouTube yelling and flexing and shaking his finger and telling you you're a pussy for not getting up at 2:45. There's still, outside the discipline and the coaching and the fitness, he's a good dude. I'm very, very happy that I've been able to work with him and build a relationship with him for sure.
That is cool. That is really cool. So you discussed about how you need to be busy all the time, right?
Hmm.
And what happens? Like, say for instance, you allow yourself to rest and just stay focused, just stop doing what you're doing. What happens during that time?
I mean, the mind starts to wander, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And sometimes that's good,
Yeah.
like you need to take that break and separate and kind of, get in your own head about things and
Hmm.
discover certain areas, that we don't normally see. But sometimes, it's I don't know. It's painful because my mind goes immediately back to areas of my life where I don't want to be and I don't want to
Hmm.
remember, so it's when I stay busy, those areas are not in focus.
Hmm.
Um, but it's still necessary because I mean those we need to face those things head on and we
Yeah.
grow through it. But sometimes it's just overwhelming, and with some of the lifestyle I used to lead and the things I used to do when I was younger, you know, when I have all that free time, I'm like, oh man, like I should go to the bar right now. Nope, bad idea, you know, or
Mhm.
you know, like just that stuff starts creeping back. You know, they say idle hands are the devil's playground. So I
Yeah.
try to keep my hands as busy as possible.
Mhm. No, I agree with you. I have the same question that gets asked me all the time. You know what I mean? That, with certain guys in our industry, me being a lineman and stuff like that, that's one of the things they say because I haven't drank in 16 years now.
Wow, congrats. That's
Yeah.
massive, dude.
Don't crave it, nothing. You know what I mean? Not that I can't go and enjoy it, but I just
Mhm.
don't want to.
Right.
Everything in my life that turned out bad, I had to start looking in a timeline and be like, oh, yep, I was drunk there. Yep, I was drunk there. Yep, I was drunk there. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
it wasn't no sermon on the mount or anything like that I stopped drinking for, is actually my wife once again. I was working out of state and I used to drink a 6-pack of Shiner Bock and 2 miniatures driving home, right? And
Hmm.
I'd get home and my wife had a 6-pack of Shiner in the refrigerator and we lived out in the country. And I would sneak in the back when I came into the house and I'd pop a top real quick and jam one down. That way she couldn't smell it. But she wasn't stupid, because bourbon smells a lot stronger, right?
Right.
So one day I'm over there flipping hamburgers. I'm on the gazebo and we had 15 acres behind us of alfalfa. Well, a guy had rented it out so he can start preparing it so he can start irrigating it for the season so he can start
Hmm.
billing it. And I used to throw all my miniatures over the fence. Okay. Well, this dude comes up with 2 5-gallon buckets and he sets them right at the fence. Right. And they're filled with Maker's Mark, little tiny miniatures. Right. And it just so happened to be, dude, where my wife was coming out with the burgers, and the buns and stuff, and she sees him, she looks at me, and she gives you that look that only a wife can give, right?
All right.
So I'm like, oh crap, I'm in trouble. So immediately I stop what I'm doing and I go up to her, I'm like, oh, what's up? And she's like, I don't care if you drink. I really don't. You can do whatever you do. You're a grown man. You have a hard job, whatever. She's like, oh, and I had a daughter at the time, right? And she's
Hmm.
like, "Oh, your daughter, are you okay with your daughter growing up and smelling that alcohol on you and being comfortable with that smell? And later on in life, she chooses a man based off that smell, subconsciously and doesn't even realize that. And now she's with some drunk guy." She's like, "Are you okay with that?" Dude, I was
That's
like,
heavy.
"Yeah." From that day forward, never drink again.
Solid. That's
Yeah.
legit. That's legit,
So
man.
sometimes it takes that woman, like we talked about earlier, you know what I mean, to put stuff into
Absolutely.
perspective.
Absolutely. You know, and that's massive, man. I mean, 16 years and then also, you know, having that come to self moment, you know, that your wife was fortunately able to share with you and not something else,
Hmm.
you know, because I mean, I kind of had to face that on my own. I didn't have anybody sit back and tell me like, "Hey, you have like a problem." Because
Hmm.
I was wild as shit for years, you know, drinking, partying, like just being like I just being as reckless as possible. It was like a rush for me, you
Hmm.
know what I mean? And you know, I drank all the time. The thing is, I never considered myself an alcoholic. I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
And then I finally like sat back and was like, man, I've gotten 2 DUIs. I've been to jail a few times. You know, all of these instances that had happened along the
Hmm.
last like let's just say 10 years. Everything that ended in some sort of, you know, poor problem or poor situation was because of alcohol. Because I was either out trying to get drunk or something I did while I was drunk or a group of people I was around when I was drinking. And it took me, you know, until I was about 30 years old to realize that we're like, shit, I did have a problem with alcohol. You know what I mean? That shit consumed my life. Like I was just completely out of control. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like it's even strange too, because I know I might be a little bit behind the curve on this, but I just recently started listening to the Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And it
Hmm.
goes into how like liquor and alcohol and sex and smoking, tobacco products and stuff like that is all products of the devil, and
Mhm.
it's not necessarily that the devil is, a beast with a tail and a forked tongue and horns, but it's like the devil is distraction, lack of focus, negative energy, like all this stuff. And it's
Mhm.
like so funny looking back on that time in my life and just seeing how much of that is very, very true.
Mhm.
Like having zero focus. Like I couldn't focus on shit. I didn't have goals. I had like no aspirations. Like my only concern was like paycheck, bar,
Mhm.
repeat. Go to work for 4 or 5 days, collect a check, go get up on the weekends, repeat. And that was
Yeah.
life. And it's just a miserable life to live.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But it took me a long time to realize that. But fortunately, it was
Mhm.
something I did realize.
No, definitely. If you start writing down the things that you do, you'll definitely see that cycle, right? Everything happens in cycles. For me, it was chewing tobacco and drinking. I stopped drinking and I chewed tobacco. I stopped chewing tobacco by drinking, and it was this vicious cycle that I kept going on. And I had to realize my cycle, what triggered me, what caused me to go to this, and how I handled those triggers and stuff like that. And it's usually I started seeing those triggers in that quiet time that we talked about. And
Right.
you're absolutely right. It's painful, but it's necessarily because if not, what happens usually with trauma, Brad, and we had a past psychologist talk about this. What happens with trauma is it's stored right here in your frontal cortex, right? You're right here.
Mm-hmm.
And people that experience that trauma, unless it's dealt with, they relive it. They literally are stuck forever
Mm-hmm.
in that one mode, okay? And it's painful. And they relive it and relive it and relive it. And how do they do it? Just like that book you just talked about, by
Mm-hmm.
masking it and covering it up, because the devil, our enemy, right? Or whatever people want to call him, right? I call him our enemy. He
Mm-hmm.
wants you sedated. He wants you checked out. He doesn't want you getting healthy because he knows if he keeps you on this cycle,
Mm-hmm.
busy, consistently busy doing stuff, right? You're never going to get healed from that point in your life. You're forever stuck in that point in your life.
Right.
It's freaking crazy, dude.
Yeah. It's mad. It's insane.
Yeah.
And then I
It's
wish I would have.
insidious.
Yeah, I wish I would have read that book, a couple years ago. But I think it crossed me at the right time because I'm actually able to see it and understand it now.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back and seeing, what I've been able to do with my life in a short period of time when I'm actually very driven, very focused, very on point, very busy,
Mm-hmm.
and very goal oriented, versus a period in my life where not even that long ago where I was like, people from the outside looking in would be like, yeah, he's strong, he's disciplined, he still does all this and that, but I was like barely hanging on. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I was just showing face to show face, and everything behind it was a fucking lie.
Mm.
And now it's just like, and now it's like I feel I'm right where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing too is like everybody's like, oh well, all that stuff that happened, I wish it didn't happen. And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of had the come to self moment too, where I'm like, you know what? I'm glad all that shit happened. I'm glad everything I went through, you know, like happened when it did and my life came out the way it did. Because at this point in time, like if I didn't have that experience, then there would be no contrast, to what was, a poor emotional time, a poor way of living, a meaningless lifestyle to like something that's very fruitful and beneficial to not only myself, but my family and my career,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So like being able to like sit back and be like, man,
Mm-hmm.
just a few things, a few simple decisions can change the course of your life like that. If
Mm-hmm.
you decide to take it and run with it for what it's worth.
Absolutely. And sometimes our mess is our message as well,
100%.
you know, I don't want to listen to somebody who's never has dirt on their hands. Honestly, that's just
Right.
me, right? How am I going to listen to advice from some dude that doesn't know what a hard day's work is? You know what I mean?
For
I'm not going
sure.
to listen to that fool. You know what I mean?
For
Honestly.
sure.
And it's good to see that guys like you, guys like Wes, guys like me, all the other guys that are out there, right,
Hmm.
are guys who have went through stuff in their life and they're able to reach that group of men. You know what I'm saying? And show them that there is another way.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? Because like when I was younger, like all I wanted to do was be like a thug, you know what I mean, per se. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to meaningless, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd rather have everything I have right now and be, tucked away in the countryside, living an honest, quiet life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and it's crazy. And I get to now I'm on a level where I can show that, where I can
Mm-hmm.
show that level of discipline and dedication and leaving that shit in the rear view and what it can
Mm-hmm.
really do for your life. But I need to be better about opening up about my past on social media, but sometimes it's hard
Yeah.
because like, we're stuff we've been through in our lives. Well, I'm like, well, it's really not that big of a deal. Like it's like people deal with that shit, but it's like not everybody does. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So what I've been able to kind of brush off and say, well, it's really not that big of a deal. People go through that shit. Someone on the other end needs to hear that because they're
Yeah.
going through it right now. And they're like, I don't even know what to do. Like, so like you said, your mess is your message, man. Like nailed it. Like Sean Whalen said that
Mm-hmm.
at the Miami Mastermind, and that can hit me like a bag of bricks. I'm like, okay, I need to open up a little bit more about my past and that I'm not just this guy who's a fireman and now he's a coach. Like, I need to show people like where the guy came from a little bit more and what
Mm-hmm.
I've been through in the last 10 or 15 years as a young man and an adult, and coming from kind of an area of deep and darkness and self-destruction, self-sabotage, to like almost a level of righteousness through discipline and
Mm-hmm.
self-mastery with habits and performing daily tasks that keep me in line.
Yeah. Well, Kyle said the same thing. He's like, dude, there's someone waiting to hear your story and how you made through it. They're waiting on you. So
Yeah,
stop making them wait. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right. No, and it's true, and sometimes it's hard, man, because like with social media and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
putting yourself out there like that. I know a lot of people are fearful. I was for a while too. Like I can have the hardest time like getting on camera and just talking because I
Mhm.
was afraid of what people would say. Like, oh, look at Brad, he's just being like, oh, dear diary shit. You know what I mean? But like it
Mhm.
really took like Wes basically like getting on me, like, dude, you need to get on camera. Like your people, the people that follow you for a reason, they want to hear your story. They want to hear you talk. They want
Mhm.
to hear what you've been through and how you dealt with it and how you got to where you are now, you
Mhm.
know? And I'm like, shit, like, all right, I can hate opening up because, as a man, I mean, I feel like everything we've always been taught and conditioned to do is like shove it deep down inside,
Yep.
shove it deep down inside, put that shit away, fucking go cry behind a locked door if you need to, but don't let
Rub some
anybody
dirt
fucking
on
see
it.
or hear you. Yeah, exactly. Rub some fucking dirt in that big ass open wound and keep
Mhm.
going. But yeah, but it's funny, it's just but it's almost like liberating at the same time too when you do
Yeah.
drop it. It's like you're taking a weight off your shoulders, man. Like that shit. I mean, even just recently I put out that video of me like turning down my promotion training assignment because it involved, it interfered with my son's birthday. And like
Yeah.
some people are like, "Oh, well, what's the fucking deal? Like you turned down a training assignment." I'm like, "Dude, that shit was on my head for like 5 days, like stressing me. I'm gonna just do what I feel is right. I'm gonna just do what I feel is right. I've always led my life by my heart, and it's as many times as I've gotten into some bad situations, I've always gotten out of it. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was never it was never it was never a definite shit show. It was just a temporary phase of adversity that led to another form of opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And dude, you're always going to have critics. You're always going to have
Oh
haters.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Judgers. And that just means that you're striking that nerve. You're doing something that they know they should, you
yeah,
know? I used
yeah,
to always think to myself, man, what's their deal with these people? You know what I mean? Are they jealous? What it is? And it's not jealousy, right? What it is you are doing something that they know they should be doing, and it
yeah,
freaking strikes a nerve. It pisses them
yeah.
off, you know?
They're
So
projecting their own insecurities. Like it's just they'd rather sit there and talk shit than be like, man, I should be doing that. That's a step I need to be taking in my life, in that direction. They'd really be
mhm,
like, oh, this is just trying to be somebody he's not. And it's like, no, I'm 100% me. I think you're someone who you're not even comfortable with. That's why you're projecting that level of dissatisfaction with yourself in all
mhm.
reality.
And I think it's a process too, because there's only one Wes, right? Only
Mm-hmm.
one Wes. There's only one Brad. There's only one me, David, show up dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has to grow and develop, right? And you're growing and developing. You're in that stage where you're growing, Brad. You're learning about Brad. You're discussing Brad. You're getting comfortable, getting on the, like with what Wes told you, getting on
Mm-hmm.
and presenting and speaking to your people, because your people aren't Wes's people. You have
No.
your own set of people that you are going to be able to talk to, right? And that's
Right.
cool. That's development, and that's what you're going through. You're going to that development stage, and I think that's awesome, bro. I really do.
Yeah, man, it's been great. Like I've found a newfound strength in myself.
Mhm.
I've always felt like I've been a little bit more disciplined and a little bit more critical on myself than most people are, but like taking it to that next level and really living it every day, honestly, and being
Mhm.
able to like show and teach other people the importance of it has been massive.
Mhm.
It's been not only good for me, but good for others too.
Yeah.
And that's the great part about the power of social media is, being able to reach an audience, and whether they're on my training program, whether they're directly being coached by me or not, like I have the ability to make a positive impact in somebody's day, where
Mhm.
like my life basically used to be surrounded by negativity, and every
Mhm.
action, everything I did, was basically negative or out of spite or out of self-sabotage. So to bring positivity back into the world on that kind of scale
Mhm.
it means a lot to me. I love it. It's been very fulfilling.
Mhm. No, for sure, for sure. What are some tips or strategies that you can share with the fathers wanting to have a balanced and fulfilling lifestyle? Like, what can you share with our audience?
Well, I'd say the number one thing is you have to make time for yourself too. Because I
Okay.
know a lot of fathers, our go-to thing is like, everything is work and family. We
Yeah.
never do anything for ourselves. We put everybody above self. And that's great. I mean, that's I mean, as a man, a protector, I feel like that's our default, right? But we
Mhm.
need to step out of that norm, out of that casing, and be like, okay, I can't give these people, my family, my coworkers, my partners, whatever, the best version of me if I'm not spending at least a little bit of time every day
Mhm.
working on me. Now, whether that's, taking an hour to go work out every day in the mornings or in the evenings, whenever your schedule allows, or focusing on a healthy diet or practicing some form of self-development, whatever the route may be, all three, ideally, you know what
Mhm.
I mean? But I feel like if you're not working on a better version of yourself, you're not going to be able to give the best version of yourself to your family and to your work.
Mm. I like
So
that.
take the time, whether it's 10 minutes a day or 2 hours a day, to
Mhm.
do something for you.
Mhm.
And that,
How
that may
does
sound selfish, but
No, no, no. I like it. It's absolutely true. I mean, throughout the history of the world, you always saw men departing, going to the mountains or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Going on these
mm,
fasts or these trips or whatever, and it was to get closer to God. You know what I
mhm,
mean? To get closer to that inner being that speaks to you. So
mhm.
that's cool. You definitely need that time to just sit back and then just reflect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's important.
Uh-huh.
And now, like you said, it used to be going off into the hills or going on a hunt,
Mhm.
or some sort of nomadic cultural experience of man.
Mhm.
And nowadays that's been completely removed from our society. So for just man to take even just a little bit of time every day
Mhm.
to work on himself, I feel is very important. And some people will say, well, that's not balance because you're taking time for yourself. And I'm like, you have to take time for yourself. You have to make time for yourself
Mhm.
because, and I'm not going to put any of my clients in particular on blast, but I feel like that's what happens with a lot of
Yeah.
these men that I'm coaching right now is they've dedicated so much of their life to their family and to their work. And then they're like, I don't even know what to do anymore. Everything I do is for them. And I'm like, check it out, man. I'm going to help you out. We're going to dedicate, we're going to restructure your day a little bit more. We're going to put some time in there for you. We're going to work on self. And I guarantee in a few months, if you follow like these little parameters, this structure, this program that I lay out for you, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself.
Mhm.
Because they almost lose their identity in a sense. And then they re-find it, you know what I mean? Rediscover themselves through self-care, self-love, self-development.
I like that you said parameters. Okay. I use that all the time. I don't know how to operate unless I have certain parameters. Another word for parameters would be boundaries that I use. Okay. We had a psychologist, Dr. Stephen Poulter, real well-known psychologist, come on our show, and he talked about boundaries. And boundaries are amazing. Boundaries are the things that we use to say to our bosses, no, I'm not going to work this weekend because I'm going to go hold on to, my word to my kid that I got to go to his baseball game or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
When you put those boundaries down, dude, they're huge. They're huge,
Massive.
especially training our daughters, letting them know what no means. You know what I mean? Or even our sons, putting these boundaries and letting them know, hey, you need to be back at 11 o'clock tonight or whatever. You know what I mean? Boundaries are huge, dude. And it's important that you're training your men to put down boundaries for themselves as well, that they can abide by, So that's awesome, dude.
No, it's good too. I mean, granted, like a younger me, a more wild me, like totally rejected boundaries. I didn't want anybody. I'm like, put me in a box and watch how fast I break out of it. But having structure, having boundaries, knowing your line in the sand is very good. Very, it's good for mental. It's good for self.
I had another past guest, Nathan Padilla. Guy had an amazing story, right? And he talked about how boys and girls are different, right? He said that boys need to have structure before relationship. And I implemented that with my boys because I have two boys and a daughter, right? An older daughter. My two little boys, they absolutely love structure. They need to be told, okay, you need to clean up your room. You need to go clean up outside. And dude, it's almost like they're following commands. They love it. They thrive on that. Whereas my daughter, if I tell her that stuff, unless I have that relationship built up with her to where she knows she's the apple of my eye, dog, it ain't gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? So they're completely awesome. So boundaries help out tremendously.
Absolutely. That's so funny. I agree though. I mean, my son is like the same way. Like if I give him, like you say, boundaries, parameters, structure, he does really good. And then when I feel like he can't focus, like he can't, like he's just like, yeah, like, pent up energy, I'll take him out and I talk about little boys like cattle dogs. You know what I mean? Like they're working dogs, they're working breed. Give them something to do and they'll do it. Give them nothing to do and they're going to get in trouble. And if they can't focus, they're not performing the way you want them to, then go run out of them and then break them down and they'll listen to you.
My old man, when me and my brother would get all crazy and wild, he would either put us outside to chop wood or pull weeds or whatever, you know what I mean? And then he started implementing like burpees to us, right? He'd be like, oh, you guys got to do burpees, you know what I mean? And he would sit there and we'd have a big old sweaty mess, we're slipping and falling. And I guarantee we'd stop throwing jabs, with each other, and I do the same thing with my boys now. They'll do the burpees. But what I've really gone into arm wrestling.
Nice.
It's super huge out here in Southern California. And so I have my tables and everything. And now if they want to throw fists, I tell them, go to the table. And they just go after it. You know what I mean? Best out of 5 real quick. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
You know what I'm saying?
That's super cool. That's super cool.
What do you think? How important is it to find a group? Okay, so you talked about the group of men you deal with. How important is it to find that support that you need from family, friends, and community resources and stuff like that?
It's massive. You know what I mean? Because there's a couple different ways of saying it. It's like you are the mean of the 5 people you're directly closest to, or guilty by association, or you are the company you keep, whatever way you want to say it.
Yeah.
So if you are able to get into a circle of people, whether it's a support circle, or mentors, coaches, coworkers that share a like-minded lifestyle or a
Mhm.
lifestyle that you admire, it's only going to be an improvement for you because, as much as I love some of my friends that I grew up with, I mean, they're still doing the same old shit. They're still in the bars, they're still going out, and that's fine. If they want to do that, that's cool. But
Yeah.
that's not my life anymore. So I don't surround myself with that group of people. Like, do I still talk to them and show them love and hit them up every once in a while and try to see them when I can? Absolutely. But my mind, my lifestyle, the things that I want are not congruent with those activities. So
Mm.
I've put myself around people who participate in the same lifestyle that I do.
Mhm.
And I feel it's massively important because when you get around people who value the same things and they don't operate on negative energy or fear,
Yeah.
they kind of lead like a limitless, positive, abundant lifestyle. It's absolutely life changing, you know,
Mhm.
because all it takes, everybody is so used to that scarcity mindset and fear.
Yeah.
You sit around and talk to friends, or in old times, like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and you got buddies that are like, man, that'll never happen, or that's not the life we're cut out for. We didn't come from this, and we're gonna have that.
Yep.
Bullshit, man. If you put yourself around the right people and you change your mindset, you basically change all of your daily activities to put yourself in alliance with the things that you want. It's only a matter of time before you get there.
Mhm.
And you have to change your circle too every once in a while.
Yep.
That's unfortunately the part about self-development and
Mhm.
self-growth that sucks, is because you're going to outgrow some of the people around you, and they're
Mhm.
not going to want to grow with you. They're going to be either intimidated by your growth, jealous of it, or anything in between.
Mhm.
And they're instead of being your biggest supporter, they're going to just trash on you because they
Mhm.
don't understand it. And unfortunately, I mean, I haven't had to deal with it directly, but I know there's a couple. It's just a trip. I got people, on the other side of the world that are showing me more love than some of the people who I would call family. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's wild. It blows my mind. Like, these
Mhm.
dudes that I've like grown up with, who I've like done some bad shit with, who I would consider my brothers by blood, by family, by anything.
Mhm.
And, they don't even have the nerve to hit me up and be like, dude, I love seeing you do
Mhm.
this. I love this side of you. I love this version of you. Instead I got like this this awesome dude in Australia who like sends me voicemails on Instagram every morning, like, hey, good day, brother. I love what you're doing. You're killing it. I love watching you every day. Have an awesome week. Have an epic day. Like, that revs my engine, dude. I love that
Yeah.
kind of support. And for it to come from a complete stranger on the other side of the world, like, that means a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you have to cut those ties with those people to an extent.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to the question, like getting in a circle, getting in a group, whether it's friends, coaches, mentors, with the church, religion, whatnot, the
Mhm.
people having the same values, same goals, same ambitions is mandatory in my mind. It's life changing,
Yeah.
absolutely life changing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, and you're right too. You have to get radical with that change. That's why we moved back to Southern California. We moved completely, once we started doing what we're doing, because
Hmm.
it wasn't believe it or not, majority of our supporters are here in Southern California. You know what I mean? They absolutely love what we are doing. They're hungry for it. And where
Hmm.
we came from, they weren't, and I asked a friend that one time, Cody, I'm like, "Oh, what's up with the dudes over there?" You know what I mean? Where we come from, they're kind of like haters. And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Dave, you got to understand, it's the old high school theory, and the way he put it was, if you piss yourself in high school, no one's going to forget that shit because
Hmm.
they remember high school." He's like, also, you're always going to be that in their eyes, right? He's like, oh, you go somewhere else, you have these new ideas, people are on board with it, they love it, they're hungry for it. He's like, oh, eventually what happens is you go, you do your stuff, and then it starts trickling down to where those people are, and they do say, okay, now I see he's not a fraud, he's not freaking making this up. Because I, like
Hmm.
you, I mean, dude, I was a savage back in high school. If you talk to anybody about me, they're like, him? He's the show up dad. That dude was crazier than hell. You know what I mean? He was a psycho. He got stabbed at 14 by a 21-year-old. You know what I mean? All
Shit, yeah.
kinds of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it's you're never gonna outrun that stigma. You know what I mean? All you
Mm-hmm.
can do is be the best version of yourself, like you talked about.
100%.
And prove them wrong.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be all about that, like the proving it, but it was in the opposite aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me I can't do something and watch me do it. And it used to be in like a very much of a negative manner, and now it's a very positive manner. So there's a little bit of contrast as well. you know
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Brad, we're getting close. I wanted to ask you one thing real quick, brother. What is something you can tell the younger father, the younger man out there, some bit of advice in closing you can give?
so if I could go back to a younger version of myself, a younger father,
Mhm.
um prioritize time with your family.
Okay.
you know those younger years, they go by really fast, and fortunately I was able to get a second chance with my daughter, and kind of relive that stage. But I do regret being emotionally checked out and unavailable from when my son was younger. And it
Oh,
wasn't all self-sabotage back then, but I had a dramatic family event that happened when my son was born. My dad passed away unexpectedly 2 weeks after my son was born, so
mm.
I was just shattered.
Yeah.
And I look at my daughter now, and she's about 7 months old, and I can't even remember my son when he was that little. I don't remember a whole lot because I was emotionally unavailable.
Mhm.
Um, but I could just, if there's anything I could stress enough, that work, as much as we love to work and provide, there will always be a job. There will always be someone to fill your spot, and someone that will take your spot. Put your family first. you
Mm.
know Prioritize that time with family and your kids and your wife, and self. The job is just a job at the end of the day. And I know a lot of us put work very high on the pedestal,
Yeah.
especially, coming from trade backgrounds. Like everything's like, oh, I got work, I can't go on vacation because I got work. And a lot of us love what we do, and that's okay to have a labor of love. But you gotta shed some light, some time, some love on your family as well. And if not, more than we do for the job.
Mm. I like that, man. Well, once again, Brad, thank you for coming on. How can people reach out to you if they want to get a hold of your program or whatever? If you want to share that with us
Yeah,
right now, that'd be awesome.
absolutely. So you can always hit me on Instagram at reliant.fitness. And I also have TikTok and YouTube. I think TikTok is reliant.fit, and then YouTube is reliant.fitness, just like the Instagram. Reach out, comment, DM, anything. I'm always on. So if you're looking to get on a program, get some knowledge, or just need to pick me up, shoot me a message.
Right on. And you guys listening, man, just remember Reliant Fitness, like we discussed about the definition of reliant earlier in the program, dependent on someone or something. Brad is definitely someone that's going to be in your corner, who you can rely on, who you can be dependent on, and he's going to show you the way. Thank you guys
100%.
for listening. Thanks, Brad. Be talking to you soon,
Okay.
brother.